Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations for New Comic Book Day on, what is it, October 11th already?
Yep.
Man, what happened to this year?
I wish I could tell you.
I think we just read it away.
It feels like it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that being said, we have pretty much, a number of consensus books here, but your pick I really enjoyed as well.
Yeah.
But you beat me at arm wrestling, so go ahead.
So I picked Guardians of the Galaxy issue 7. It's kind of like, last issue was kind of this you had this whole first arc of the series, which was this more like Western themed thing. Everyone's like, Peter's wearing a cowboy hat, like, you've got people talking with yawls and whatnot. And then the last issue was kind of like bridging the gap between like what happened to cause all that and like where the series is going from there. And here we get the return of Hulkling and Wiccan. I don't think we've really seen much of them in a while. They showed up in Scarlet Witch recently, but they show up to kind of investigate like, hey, what's going on out here? And turns out stuff's gotten even weirder than it already was. Like, we kind of actually finally get to like the bottom of like what the whole like Groot space is, like why Groot has been doing what he's been doing.
Yeah, because it Groot's coming in and devastating all life on planets and replacing it with his own plant life, an extension of themselves.
And then in here we kind of find out like why he's been doing that, and like it, like, and once it explains, just like it's very much like, oh, that makes sense. Like you understand like why everything kind of happened the way it did. The problem is not everyone in there like feels the same way about it.
Right.
Yeah, without naming names, like when like the galaxy at large like finds out, some people still aren't happy, and it's probably going to get real bad for a lot of people real quick, which if you've seen a lot of my picks, unfortunately tends to be the case for the people in the comics. I like when we'll get there soon enough. But but I don't know, it's really fun getting to see some of the like characters we haven't seen in a bit. We've also get kind of teased that like maybe some other characters we haven't seen in a while might get to show up again soon, which is super cool. But I don't know, I love anytime Hulkling and Wiccan, I keep wanting to call them like a couple name like Hulkin or something.
Wickling.
Ooh. I don't like that. That's
it definitely is the one that's easier to say.
It's easier to say, but it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, Hulkin.
Yeah, but like I love anytime they get to like be a fun couple together going on space adventures, especially when they're like they go into this thing and they've got an idea of like what they're dealing with. They're quickly learn they're very wrong.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Like, and I don't know. I also always enjoy characters who realize like how out of their depth there are. Like, oh, this is not what we expected at all. And I don't know. The art is still gorgeous as ever. Kev Walker, you can't go wrong with him doing space stuff.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm super excited to see what he does with what's coming next because, like I was kind of implying, looks like there's going to be a lot more like action going on, and he's great at that. So. Really excited.
Looked like, in the setup scene there were a lot of spaceships in the background.
lots of ships.
And he excels at that kind of thing. Yeah, so as I was reading it, I was thinking like, man, how long have Hulkling and Wiccan been married now? I know in our world time,
it's been like 3 years.
Oh man, is that all?
Yeah, well, cause it was during COVID was like the whole Empire storyline.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, there's still newlyweds here, but I couldn't help but thinking, like, when do they hit that we've been married for a while thing, because they're definitely acting more like newlyweds at this point still. But then, I liked the way that Kev Walker was doing a lot with shadow and keeping things in a lot of mystery and stuff. So, yeah, great book.
Yeah, like, there's kind of going off of that, there's, without getting to, like, spoilers about, like, some of the characters that show up, like, just the way that like he has them like in the shadow a lot, like what they're saying sounds really good, but like you're kind of like on your toes the whole time because like just the way the scene like has them is just like, are they trustworthy?
Well, and I'm still not sure that we know the entire story.
Yeah.
Part of what we don't know, so we know kind of what thought process is maybe not quite the right word, but what what the plan behind everything that's been happening is. But we don't know why. Yeah, we don't know what set it off. Yeah, do we?
We kind of get a little bit in the last issue. It's like we don't have like all the specifics yet, but like the last issue kind of gives like an idea of like what exactly caused it. Yeah. But
well, it'll be interesting to see. I think they're going to leave some of that stuff kind of on the murky side, and we're going to go to some action starting with this next issue. But I've really liked this volume so far. You know, the art, the writing style of Jackson and Lansing, right?
Yep.
Has been really, really good. I think this is a book that they could let him run on. They pulled him off of Captain America pretty quick. You know, what was it? A story arc, basically. It was a long story arc.
Yeah.
It was a story arc, basically.
Like, spoiler alert, they've got a new Outsiders comic from DC coming next month.
Right, I forgot.
And there's a good chance it'll probably be on here.
yeah, excellent. Well, we'll move on to our next pick, and I went with Sandman, #1 from DC, and this is the Wesley Dodds Sandman, the Golden Age variety.
Not the ethereal in your head Sandman.
Yep. No Neil Gaiman Sandman here. So this is taking place in 1940, and we get kind of an interesting insight into kind of the character of Wesley Dodds, but also what made him kind of be the way that he is. So he's the scientist who works with, chemicals and gases and stuff. That's how he creates the sleeping gas that Sandman uses to fight crime. But we find out that his dad had an experience in World War I where obviously gas was used.
Yeah.
In horrific ways, and that's one of the reasons why he's being very, very careful about keeping the secrets of the testing process and gases that he deemed to be way too dangerous because they're, cause psychosis or death or paralysis or, things that people would obviously take advantage of. And you get kind of a little bit of his social network. You get to meet some of the people that he's dealing with on a regular basis. And he's kind of got that, Bruce Wayne, Green Hornet kind of vibe, where he's a guy who inherited money and he's using those resources and so forth to fight crime. He's got a socialite girlfriend and a butler and, all of those kinds of trappings that were very, very common in Golden Age characters. And, full disclosure here, I'm not super familiar with the character and his actual Golden Age background.
Well, because the thing with, this is the first of 3 miniseries they're doing focused on, specific JSA characters. Correct, so we've got this, I think next week is The Flash, and the week after that is Green Lantern.
Yes, and there's a preview for The Flash.
Yeah. And I think one of the cool things with, compared to the other two, Sandman, he just really hasn't had, the same kind of, legacy that the other two have had. So, this is the first time I think, I honestly think the last time they really did anything with the character was there was, an arc in Starman back in the 90s where he's there. And I think that was, the last thing he did before he, passed away.
Yeah, and became zombie Sandman.
Also, yes, that happened recently.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's just a character that DC's never, done quite as much with. I think also partially because, as we mentioned at the top of this, when you think of Sandman from DC, you usually think of Neil Gaiman's stuff.
Yeah.
So he's just, there's not as much that I feel like has been done with him, so there's a lot more for Vendetti to work with here.
Yep. And, it's no secret I like the noir storytelling and art style. This one's a little more on the cartoony side, but it works well. So it was a really interesting kickoff to this very, very short story. But yeah, I'm interested in it. And I know that, DC just can't make up their mind. Do they want to have, these alternate realities or go back in time and tell these other stories and kind of do some messier continuity stuff? Or do they just want to clean house, start from scratch, forget everything that had ever happened in the past? But I hope that they stick more in this kind of area where it's not everything has to be in line, and you can tell some stories that are going to kind of push continuity boundaries or are just from a totally different continuity. Because really that's where they tell some of their best stories, and they're just never going to do a full clean
No, it's never
reboot
going
of
to happen.
continuity anyway, so just quit trying to tell yourself that you're going to. But yeah, this was really fun. I recommend it. Real easy to get into because it's going to be such a short, contained story, spinning into some of the other ones. But yeah. All right, so not at all a short story. This one's been going for a while.
Yeah. So here we've got, technically, you could argue the story's been going since the start of the Krakoan era.
Oh, yeah.
But we've got X-Men Red 16. I feel like if any series we've had on this, like this series might have been on here the most just because of how often we picked it.
This is definitely the most picked X-Men series since Hickman left it.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But with good reason, because we are like near the climax of the whole big war between like Storm and Genesis and their forces, and as you can kind of tell by all the flames and skull holding here, things are not going well.
No, the Children of Apocalypse are wreaking havoc.
The original Horsemen are back, and this issue was so good. Like they finally called back to like a plot thread that's been dangling since Judgment Day last year, and the way that they address it.
Oh yes.
Yeah, the way they address that, especially at the end, where it's just like, of the two evils you're faced with, do you go with this evil or this evil?
How far do you go to secure victory?
Yeah, like at what point does it like not matter which is which? And
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know. Basically, Storm has been like the main character for this entire run. Like, it's called X-Men Red. It probably should have just been called Storm and Her Brotherhood because like this book is about her, and like one of the main things it's been dealing with this entire time is like a core thing for the X-Men going back a long time, very much like established as being like a big thing during Claremont's run is just like whether the X-Men kill or not. Like what and obviously like over the years they've become pretty like comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And so a big thing of this has been like what lengths is Storm willing to go, like how violent, how deadly is she willing to be? Because she's a character that if she wants to could do a lot of damage to a lot of people.
Easily, yeah.
And that's always been like one of the things with her is how far is she willing to go with her power? Like people call her a goddess and they're not wrong really. Like how far are you willing to let yourself go down that road like when you've got the power to back it up?
Yeah. Well, and they're really pushing the boundaries here because if you read the last couple issues, we're in full-on war between these two factions. And the Trojan horse moment happened last issue.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're coming in right as the tide has turned for Storm and her group. They made a fatal strategical error and have let the bad guys into the gate. And now this entire city is literally burning and civilians are dying all around them.
Like there's a point like very early on the issue where there's some like other side characters we haven't seen a bit or like they're supposed to be like, oh, we're going to Port Prometheus, and then like one of them gets a call. Never mind, Port Prometheus doesn't exist anymore.
It's a smoldering heap of ash now. Yeah, so that's kind of the backdrop for it, and then enter this secret weapon that portends victory.
Yeah, but like at what cost?
At what cost, and then what's the aftermath too? Like how does that? So you win this battle and maybe the war, as is claimed. But then what? Then do you have to deal with this after?
Yeah, like what is the aftermath? What is like your personal loss you get? Because like they've had like the chapters of like the Book of Araco have been like one of the recurring things in this arc, and I love how like the last one ends in here, where it's just like the choice is do you let this person like do the deed, or do you like do it yourself? Like what is the more proper thing to do?
Right.
Like the results are going to be the same. It's just a matter of like how much do you want? Like, do you want to lay the burden more on others or on yourself?
Yeah. Well, and to be fair too, there are other characters that are kind of put in that position too. Like we have this code that we live by. Do we really live by it, or is victory everything? So that's a recurring theme in here.
Like that's the fact that like this one issue has more characterization for like these four horsemen than they've had like pretty much their entire rest of the time they've like been around for the last couple of years. Like I love Death so much.
Yeah.
The character, not the concept.
Right. Yeah. Best
Like
the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
Starting right now pretty easily.
Yeah. But like everyone kind of gets their little moment. Like Sunspot is still like he's been like reeling since the Hellfire Gala. Like he's blames himself for like so much going wrong.
Yeah.
Like, and he really shouldn't because it's not his fault. Like any of it really.
Yep.
You get like a cool Nova moment.
Oh,
which,
so good.
Yeah.
I
Like
assume that ends okay because of the way that it played out, but they weren't specific.
yeah, we don't get to like see the exact like end of that, but like I don't know. I assume he's not going to be as like he's going to be doing better next time we see him.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
That was a great moment though. Very classic Richard Rider Nova moment.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly which again.
Mm-hmm.
Ewing, just write the Nova book. We've got the character down.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
But and there's another character we haven't seen in a little bit. Finally gets to show up at the end of this, which also hints at another character we haven't seen. Like there's so many characters coming back together for this final arc, and it's going to get very explosive. I feel like at the end here, like.
I always hate when they do like a major conflict,
Mm-hmm.
but the scope of characters involved in it just isn't big enough to give it the grand sense.
Yeah.
This definitely feels like two armies at war, and it's great. And the art is fantastic in it.
And if you get to the end of it and feel like very sad and depressed, there's a fun little backup story with Sunspot and Shark Girl.
Yeah, which is just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the art was good in that too. I really liked it.
It's fun. There's cults, there's snakes, it's all kinds of good stuff.
Yep, snakes and sharks. And
it's a real nice like bring you down from like the existential like dread of the rest of the issue.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well,
I see what you did there.
Yes, right? So with that segue, there's tons of other stuff to read this week. A whole bunch of good stuff. A lot of great facsimiles have been coming out. I like that they're going nice and deep with some of them too. But
a lot of good indie stuff that we didn't even really get a chance to talk about here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So be sure to stop on in or check out the new releases on our website or on the app. And like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And leave comments because we like seeing those as well. There was a really good one about last week's video that made me chuckle. So thanks again for joining us, and we will be back next week.